Well, hello and welcome to today's session. Thank you for attending. This is Renee with Admiral Consulting Group. And today I'm very excited to present Dynamics 365 Business Central. And the goal of the presentation today is to provide you really just enough information so that you can decide if Business Central is something that you should explore further. I'll start by telling you what Business Central is and by providing a comparison to a product that you know well, Dynamics GP. And then after that, I'll show you the solution's user interface and I'll demonstrate how you can process several different types of transactions. I'll also go over your pricing and licensing options towards the end, and also implementation options. And as a preview to that part of the presentation, you can do a full-blown migration to GP from, or I should say from GP to Business Central, or you can kind of just dip your toe in. And either way, you're probably going to need some of our services to do that. So I'll help you understand what that might look like and what the consulting costs might be. And then we'll end the presentation with how you can try the software and how you can purchase it. And you can ask questions at the end by typing questions into the question pane on your GoToWebinar app. And the presentation is going to take a full 50 minutes today. Dynamics 365 Business Central is a modern, very full-featured, cloud-based ERP system, and it's now Microsoft's flagship product for mid-sized companies and small companies. And as you'll see today, in a lot of ways, it's similar to GP, and in many ways, it's also very different. Because it's full cloud, you don't need any hardware on-premise, and you don't need a private cloud either, so you don't need Amazon Web Services or Azure, and there's no contracts. And since it's full cloud, there is no costly upgrade project every few years, and new features are seamlessly introduced on a regular basis. So what that means is you'll come in and log into the system one morning and you'll see there's new menu options, and there's new fields that are available on various windows, and that happens on a regular basis. Officially, the product was released in 2018, but it's by no means a new product. Before 2018, the product was known as Dynamics NAV, and before that it was known as Navision. And that product's code base has been around since the mid-80s, and it has 2.5 times as many installations worldwide as GP does. Business Central is in fact Dynamics NAV with a new name and offered as a true software as a service model. With its assisted setup features, it's much quicker to set up than GP and most of the competing products. It's very intuitive, making it really, really easy to use, and you'll see that in a few minutes. And Microsoft designed the product to support your company's digital transformation, which is a buzzword today. And you can define that as a product or a service that very quickly and dramatically improves customer service, operational efficiency, enhances your workforce, creates a better culture, and integrates with a variety of other digital technologies. Business Central does this with its mobility features, its social networking, artificial intelligence, analytical, and integration features as well. It has the most complete Office integration yet for any Microsoft ERP solution, where you can, for example, execute every single step of your order to cash cycle 100% within Microsoft Outlook. And as your needs increase or decrease, you can easily scale up or down in functionality and user counts. It also has a really tight integration with Dynamics 365 Sales if you need CRM, and an extraordinary integration with Power BI. And we've gone over Power BI a couple times in some of our webinars over the last year. If you're still not familiar with what Power BI is, it is Microsoft's business intelligence tool that lets you visualize and dig deeper into your data so that you can make better business decisions. And best of all, it's free. And finally, on this slide, at $70 per month per user, Business Central is more affordable than GP and is quite a bit less expensive than most of the competition. Okay, so now how does it compare to GP? So what I'm going to do first is compare and contrast their platforms and general features, and then I'm going to talk about some of their functionality, but at a pretty high level. So I already talked about their birthday, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the history there, but I'll just say that both of the code bases have a very, very long history. In terms of installations, Navision has 100,000 worldwide, whereas GP has 40,000. All in all, both have extremely large installation bases. As I said earlier, Business Central is more affordable at just $70 a month for its Essentials version, and I'll go into detail about that later. For comparison purposes, GP can be hosted by us or by other third parties for about $250 per month. It's definitely cheaper than hosting GP, and it's definitely cheaper than most competition. So if you're looking at another pure SaaS product on the market, most take at least $1,000 a month to get into. Next, we'll talk about upgrades. As most of you know, upgrades on the GP side require planning and anywhere from say $3,000 to $20,000 in our consulting fees. With Business Central, upgrades literally just happen. You define a window or a day and a window on the clock when the upgrade can happen, and it just happens. Doesn't require any consulting. And I think this is a pretty big differentiator, or should be a pretty big differentiator for you as a customer. GP is still a very important product to Microsoft. There's no doubt about it. They have, it provides, we understand, $1 billion in revenue each year in maintenance alone. It's also recently been moved onto Microsoft's modern lifecycle, which means that it receives updates at least twice a year. GP is also the only on-premise product that is currently included in Microsoft's annual user group conference. SL, used to be Solomon, and AX, Exapta, are no longer part of that event. So it just goes to show you that GP is still important in that regard, and it's not going anywhere. Microsoft is no doubt focusing extraordinarily heavily on the cloud and making very big investments in Business Central. It's the future of Microsoft's ERP for sure. And it will be also accurate to say that GP will receive less investment as time goes on and Business Central will receive more. Okay, let's talk about some functionality. Well, I've been using GP forever. I've been a consultant on it for at least 20 years. I do like it. I do like the user interface, but it's definitely not modern. The Business Central user interface is much cleaner, I think much more logical, easier to use, and definitely more modern. And I'm going to jump into kind of a pre-demo demo real quick, and I'm just going to look at two screens. I'm going to look at the customer screen in GP, and then we're going to look at that same window in Business Central. So here's the customer window in GP. You may not be using customers in your solution, but the vendor window looks almost identical. It doesn't look bad. It's actually pretty clean. It's well organized, but there is a lot of information on this window. And if you want to get to more information or more settings, you have to click on a button and then go to sub windows, like for options, accounts, and email. And you'll also notice that on this window, it's all static information. So there's no information about customer performance or statistical information about the customer at all. Now let's bounce over to Business Central. This is the customer card in Business Central. You'll notice right off the bat that it's more spread out. It's a little bit more colorful for sure. There's no buttons to go into. You don't have to go into sub windows 99% of the time. There are some, but instead of having sub windows that you have to visit routinely, they instead have this concept of fast tabs. So you have a fast tab for general, address and contact information, invoice settings, and so on. And you notice that I can expand and collapse any of those fast tabs. And when I expand a fast tab, I also have the ability to show more or less fields, depending on what I'm trying to do. Now, more importantly than the fast tabs and just the overall look is the fact that over on the right-hand side of the screen, we have some fact boxes. So we can see customer sell-to history. We have some tiles here that show the number of transactions by transaction type, and we can drill into any of these tiles just by clicking on them. And then down below that, we have customer statistics like their total sales and payments to date and so on. So quite a dramatic difference between that window and Dynamics GP for sure. Okay, so that's user interface. Chart of accounts. This is another very big differentiator between the two products. In GP, you have a physical chart of accounts with multiple account segments, and all of the account segment combinations need to be explicitly defined in the chart. I like that personally. Some customers love it. I know some don't. Business Central is very different in how it handles a chart of accounts. So what it has is an independent list of segments or dimensions, and you can have as many dimensions as you want, so as many segments as you want, if you will, and then you can optionally define rules that dictate which dimensions can be used with which accounts and other dimensions. So for example, you can establish a rule that says balance sheet accounts can only be used with department 0000. So the way that Business Central handles a chart is, I think, it's very strong and extraordinarily flexible. Let's talk about posting. In GP, users sometimes have issues reconciling subledgers, particularly the inventory subledger related to posting issues. You can also have stuck batches in GP. And these issues simply don't exist in Business Central because the subledger post and the GL post always happen at the same time. And the way the transaction posting routines are written, transactions are never in limbo. They're either completely posted or unposted. So I'm going to take a quick poll here. If you can just click the raise hand button, if you can find it, on your GoToWebinar panel. And how many of you have ever had issues with reconciling a subledger or reconciling or dealing with stuck batches, I should say? Okay, so a couple of you had. So that goes away in Business Central. All right, next let's talk about Excel integration. The Excel integration is pretty darn good. You can export from SmartList and analyze data. You can also paste data from Excel into some of the GP transaction entry windows. And with third-party products like ActiveConnect, you can import from Excel into GP pretty easily. But Business Central takes this a big step further. You have the ability with no third-party products to edit master file data and also edit transactions in Excel, and I'll show this during the demo today as well. On the customization side, it's not too simple to add fields to GP cards and to GP transaction windows, which is unfortunate because it's a very frequent customization request. In Business Central, which is really a much more modifiable product, you can easily personalize your windows by moving, hiding, and adding fields. And again, this is something that I'll show during the live demo in just a few minutes. On the financial reporting side, GP uses Management Reporter, which is by all accounts a really good tool. I like it. It hasn't been updated in quite a few years though, so it hasn't gotten any new features. I think that's the only dig I would have against it. Business Central uses something called account schedules, and I'm going to review this during the demo, and it works fundamentally very similar to the way Management Reporter works. Next, let's talk about access to the backend database. With GP, your internal IT people rather, and consultants like us have complete access to the backend database. And this makes it really easy for us to do things like make corrections to data or execute mass changes and even do some reporting. With Business Central, you have no access to the back end, either do we. So it's much more secure, but as a consultant, I do consider this a little bit of a downside since it does limit some of the things that we can do. In GP, you have batches. Actually, they're optional. In Business Central, you do have batches for journal entries and for a number of other transactions, but they're not available everywhere. So there's no transactions for purchasing invoices or AR invoices or things of that nature. So most transactions don't have batches, but you don't need batches in Business Central in order to save. And as a matter of fact, all saves across the board happen in Business Central automatically. So there's no save button. So as soon as you leave a line or you make a change to a header or a vendor or a customer, those changes are immediately updated in the database. On the business intelligence side, specifically Power BI integration, GP has a pretty good Power BI integration, although admittedly, I don't think there's many of you that use it for whatever reason. In GP, you can pretty easily add Power BI reports and dashboards to your home screen. And if you're interested in doing that, just let your consultant know. In Business Central, they've taken it to the next level though. You can have visualizations for your individual customers, items, and vendors. And also the way that Business Central is pre-configured, it allows you to very, very, very easily create your own reports and dashboards with Power BI against Business Central data. And I'll show you a little bit of that during the demonstration as well. In terms of the product's strengths on accounting and supply chain, GP was originally a core accounting solution, and they added other functionality and modules over time. Business Central, on the other hand, started as more of a strong supply chain solution and didn't really do that much feature functionality-wise on the accounting side. But over time, they've added a lot to the accounting side and they continue to add new features all the time. It's still really, really strong on the accounting side, but it is missing some features that GP has. For example, they do not have national account functionality in Business Central. So if you need that functionality, it's going to have to be a customization. And if after this demonstration today, Business Central is something you want to explore, you probably want to let us do somewhat of a gap analysis for you to make sure that there's no features in GP that you absolutely need that you're not going to get in Business Central. Okay, so let's take a look at it. I'm going to show you some general features in navigation first, and then we're going to look at processing JEs and a couple of different payables transactions, and then I'm going to show you how to run financials and set them up as well. Okay, so I'm just going to click on a link here and get me to the home screen. Hopefully the demo gods are cooperating. Okay, here I am logged into Business Central in my browser. I happen to be using Edge, but you could use any browser that you want. You can see right up front, it's really modern and it shows a tremendous amount of information. It's also designed to render correctly on any device, including tablets and phones. So you may not want to enter transactions using your iPhone, but you certainly could, and it's 100% functional on any device. Let me just go back to my slideshow real quick and show you what this looks like on an iPhone. So I took a screenshot here of my iPhone, looking at the same company, so you can see the look and feel is almost identical to what you're seeing in my browser. And on the bottom of the iPhone app, you have a number of icons that you can click on to take you to the various portions of the screen. And again, you even have the ability to enter transactions using the iPhone. Okay, this home screen will look different for each user based on the role that is assigned to the user. So it's just like GP in that regard. And there are over 20 roles that are available. And I'm currently logged in to the business manager role, which is the role that shows more than any other one. So I use it for demo purposes. Up at the top of the screen, we have the navigation bar. And this lets us look into each module, if you will. And then it shows all the options or most of the options for that module. Right below that, we have this area, these green text areas or options. This is called the bookmark area, and you can very easily add any window or process or report to this bookmark area so that you can get to screens that you need very quickly. Below that, we have actions. This lets you quickly create sales orders, invoices, purchase invoices, payment transactions, and run reports. Over to the left, we have something interesting. This is called the headline area. And for this role, out of the box, we have 4 headlines. So we have the best-selling item, we have the top customer, we have the largest invoice, and then we have some past due invoice information. And these headlines can be customized for your business so that you can get vital information out to your entire team or important messages out to people by role within your organization. So that's pretty neat. And those are updated every 10 minutes. Up here on the right, we have a button that looks like a magnifying glass. This is the search button or the tell me button. And I'm going to use this a lot today. So this is a way to navigate without using the menus. Here you can just type in a few letters of what you're looking for. So if I type in Gen, J-O-U, if I want to get to general journals, the system will then bring up a list of pages and tasks that match whatever I typed in, and then I can navigate directly to that screen. And again, I'm going to use that quite a bit today. All right, below the headline area, we have an activities area. So there's a bunch of widgets or cues. These show summary metrics around sales, purchasing, and payments. And all of these support full drill down. So for example, if I come down to my sales queue and I click on this, I click on the number 8, that's going to show me 8 invoices in a list. And then from there, I can drill down even further back to the source transaction. So all of those cues on the home screen, all of the metrics are completely drillable. So here's the invoice. And we're going to look at some transaction windows in more detail in a little bit. And let me just go back to my home screen here. All right, then below the activities area, we have some charts, KPIs, and graphs. And by default, we have about 10 to choose from. Right now, I think I have the top 5 customers up, I do, but I could also switch to cash cycle, income and expense, my aging, my top customers by sale, and so on. And you can also customize those if you want. I'll just pick a different one real quick. Over to the right, I have an area where I can specify my favorite GL accounts, and I can see the balance and drill into them if I want to. Below that, I have a mini trial balance that shows the current month and the prior month. And again, I can drill into these numbers if I want to. And then last on the home window, I have the Power BI integration. And I'm going to just click on this and show you that I've got a number of different options that I can select from. So I can show a finance report or dashboard or sales. And there's a couple more down there as well for different roles. And then I can also expand these. And if I expand them, they look like this. So this is the financial dashboard and it's expanded. And I can just hover over the different data points in any of these graphs and see more information. So as soon as I install the product, I get these dashboards. I get one for my operating margin, my cash cycle, my earnings before interest, and I also get a mini trial balance. And again, you can completely create your own Power BI parts if you want to. Okay, so let's look at customization now. So I'm going to go to my customer list. And this customer list is where you would go if you wanted to interact with your customers. And these same concepts apply to vendors, chart of accounts, items, and so on. So when I go to my customer list page, by default, I'm seeing my customer number, the customer name, phone number, and their balance. But let's assume that I want to do some other analysis. I want to do some analysis by salesperson, but salesperson is not currently on this list. So to add salesperson to the list, I click on the gear on the upper right, and then I select personalize, and then I click the plus field button. And then over on the right-hand side of the window, I'm going to get a list of all the fields that are available for me to add. And I'm looking for the salesperson code field. And there it is. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm just going to drag it right over next to the contact column. And then it now added the salesperson field to the window. And then I'm going to stop personalizing. And that's it. That's how I can modify my list now. I can sort, select, filter, do crosstabs, export to Excel, do whatever I want by salesperson. Now I'm going to go into the customer card itself. We were there earlier, and I'm going to show you how you can add fields to the customer card. So again, I go to the gear in the upper right-hand corner, and I click on personalize, and then I click add field. And again, I get a list of fields that I can add, and there's a shorter list here because most of the fields are already placed on the window. And I can just grab the field. I'm going to grab the homepage URL and add that to the window. And I'm going to grab the fax number and add that right below it. So that's how I would add fields. Then I can also hide fields just by clicking on the red triangle and marking hide. And I can do some other things too that I won't cover in this demonstration. When I'm done customizing, I just click done. And by the way, if you've made changes that you don't like or you want to get back to stock, you can just clear your personalizations very easily. All right, so we're back on the customer list now. Let me show you how you can modify data in Excel. So when you're on a list or you're in a transaction window, you can select the page option from the menu and then edit in Excel. And this is going to download an Excel file that you can save or open. I'm just going to click on open. And this is opening it on another window of mine. So let me just wait till it pops open. And then I'll bring it over. All right, so here it is. And I'm just going to enable editing. And if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see what's going on here. So it's loading the Business Central add-in. It's authenticated against Business Central. And now it's retrieving data from Business Central in real time. And what you're going to see is the exact same data that you saw in Business Central. So it's the 5 customer records, and you can see the salesperson code here is PS. And I'm just going to change this to BD. And all of my changes are fully validated. So if I make a mistake, for example, and put it in a salesperson that doesn't exist or make other changes that are invalid, it will not update and it'll tell me what's wrong. I'm coming down to the bottom now and clicking the publish button, and you can see what it's doing. It's processing the updates, and it says the publishing was successful. So I'm just going to go ahead and close Excel. I'm back in Business Central. I'm just going to navigate back to the home screen, and then I'm going to come back to my customer list to refresh it. And then you'll notice when the customer list opens up, the salesperson will now be BD instead of PS. And there you go. All right, now let's take a look at how you would process journal entries, and then we'll look at AP. And to get to my journal entry window, I'm going to use the Tell Me button. And I'm going to type in General Journal. And it looks like maybe my keyboard has stopped working. Oops. Bear with me a second. I clicked refresh, so this is going to take it a second to reload. All right. And back to Tell Me, and back to General Journals. And this is going to look a little bit simpler than GP even. So this is the journal entry window. Up at the top, we have the header, and then down below, we have the line items. It's going to assign a default batch name, in this case, default. It's going to assign a document number. This is like the journal number in GP. You have a posting date, and optionally, you have a currency. So that's it on the header. Then you can come down to the line items, and you can type in part of the account number, and then it will filter the list by whatever you've typed in. And you can also type in part of the account's description instead. So it's like GP using Smart Fill. Although this comes with it, you don't have to have an add-on. And then after you find the account number that you want, you can just press enter, or you can use the mouse. I'm just going to put in my credit, go to the next line, type in some account description again, and put in my debit. After I've finished entering in my line items, I want to go to Actions and then look at the test report. So this is the same as a GP edit list, and I'll just run this to the window. And then you can print this out and file it if you want to. And then after that's done, and you can tell the reports are much better looking than the ones in GP. They're actually graphical instead of the old kind of courier fonts. Then we come back if everything looks good, and we do a print and post. And then after it's posted, you'll see that a report comes back up on the window again, and you can file that if you'd like. So that's how you would process a simple journal transaction. And again, that can even happen in Excel. Notice under Page, you have Edit in Excel. Oh, and by the way, there are two different ways that you can interact with this window. There's the way we just saw, where you have a header and line items. And there's also another way. Let me see where it is here. There we go. Where you can deal with it without a header if you want to. And you can put in as many journal entries as you want in the grid, where each set of lines has a document number that defines that as a standalone and balancing journal entry. So there's some flexibility there. Okay, now I'm going to go to purchase invoice. And then from here, I'm going to click on new. And this is going to take us to the invoice entry window. And the first thing we're going to want to do is put in a vendor name, and we can look up our vendor using the lookup button. We can either look for a code or a name. What I'm going to do is just type in a partial and then hit tab, and the system is going to, again, it's going to work like GP with Smart Fill. It's going to find it based on the information that you typed in. So up on the top, we have the header information, and by default, it's only showing 5 fields. If we want to see more of the data that came from the vendor master, you can click on the Show More button. I'm just going to squish this down again and show less. And then we can type in our invoice number, and the system will verify that that invoice number has not been used before. Then we can come down to the line items, and in Business Central, you have 5 different types of line items. You can have a comment line item, a GL account line item, an inventory line item, a fixed asset line item, or what's called a charge item. And I'm going to keep this simple and just select GL account. And then I'm going to type in rent and have it find my rent account. Put in my quantity of 1 and put in my cost. And then again, just like on the journal entry side, I can look at my test report, and then when everything looks good, I can simply print and post the invoice. Everything is validated, of course. And then after it posts, it's going to come back to the window. And let's just go ahead and open up the PDF, which is over here. All right, and finally, on the transaction side, I'm going to walk through payment processing. So for the example, I'm going to assume that we want to pay everything based on due date. And to get to the window, I'm going to go back to my home screen, and then I'm going to use the bookmarks this time. And you'll notice when I go into the window, payment journals, there's a number of different ways that I can move forward with payment processing, but again, I'm going to have the system automatically select based on due date. So to do that, I come to the menu and I select Prepare and Suggest Vendor Payments. And I get a parameter window that pops up, very similar to the one in GP, where I specify all the options related to who I want to pay. So I can put in filters and conditions and one check per vendor and so on. Here is where I define the date of my next check run. They call it last payment date, which doesn't really make sense to me. This is basically when you're going to do the next check run, so it knows to pay everything through that date. I have a posting date. I've got a starting document number, which is the same thing as the PYMT, the internal document number in GP. And then also I have a filter for check down at the bottom, and that means I only want to pay vendors that normally get paid by check. So don't pay them if they're EFT or credit card. So after I've filled out this window, and by the way, there's more options as well. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just click the OK button. And then this is going to generate the payment transactions for the vendors. So it generated payments for about 6 vendors. And if I just scroll over the right here, I can see how much it's going to pay each of those vendors. If I want to see the individual invoices that have been selected for payment, I can go to the Apply Entries. And I was on First Consultants. So here this window opens, and here are all the invoices that have been selected for payment for First Up Consultants. And in this window, I can adjust the amount for each invoice, or I can say that I don't want that invoice to be paid. After you've made all the adjustments, you can print the checks. So you go to Check, Print Checks. Again, you have parameters here for next check number. They call it last check number, but it's the same thing. So you just want to make sure the next check number is 286 that's in the printer. Click Print. This is going to give you a small preview of the checks, and you'll probably not be able to see it very well here, but you'll still get an idea of what the checks look like. And you can scroll through them, and then you can print the checks. And then if everything is good, everything printed okay, then you print and post, and again, you're going to get that posting report. All right, so that was journal entries, purchase invoices, and payment processing. Now let's take a look at financials. As I mentioned earlier, it uses something called account schedules. And you can see that this is all standard right here. So there's like 10 financial statements out of the box. And let me compare this to Management Reporter. So in Management Reporter, you have a concept of a row format, and the row format defines the captions that are on the report. And then it also lets you define which account or accounts go into that caption. We also have that same exact thing in Business Central, but instead of being called a row format, it's called a schedule. And then in Management Reporter, we have the concept of a column layout. And in the column layout, we define what type of data is going to appear in the columns. Is it going to be actual or budget? Is it going to be period to date or year to date, and so on. And in Business Central, it's called a column layout as well. So you take a row format, if you will, and you take a column layout, you bind them together, and that creates a financial. So let me go into the income statement and print this. So I've highlighted income statement. Now I'm going to go to print, and it brings up a parameter window where I can see the defaults for the row format and the column layout. So again, where it says account schedule, that's the same thing as a row format. So it's the income row format and the net change column layout. And then below that, I have the date range. It's the whole year of 2019. I click on preview. This renders to the window. And then after it renders to the window, I can either send it to somebody or I can save it down as a PDF if I want to. And that's it. Now, the good thing about these financials that you're looking at right here is they come out of the box and you don't have to modify them. So if you add accounts to your chart and you add the accounts properly to your chart, you don't have to do anything to the financials. They're automatically updated and we'll take that into account. The bad news is what you see is what you get. So if you want to use the standard ones, you really can't change the header or what's showing up. You can, but it would take an effort for you. Okay, so that was how you print the report to a PDF or to the screen. They also give you the ability to run the report in a different way where you can drill down on it and analyze the data, and that's called an overview. So I mark the financial and then I select overview. And at the top of the screen, it's showing the row format that's being used or the account schedule and the column layout that's being used. And it's also showing the date filter that's being used. In this case, again, the entire year. And by the way, this is a big difference between GP. When you are running financials in Business Central, you can run them for a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, a quarter, a period, a month, 2 years, 3 years, 400 days, whatever you want. So you can get as granular as a day. Below that, I have dimension filters. I'm not going to put any dimension filters in, but this would let you filter the financial for a particular geography or customer type or department if you wanted to. So here's the financial down on the bottom. And again, I can just drill into the numbers on the financial. I drilled into product sales. This is going to give me a list of all the accounts that make up the product sales number. In this case, it's just one account. And then I can drill down on the dollar amount and get to the individual transactions if I want to. So notice down here, it's only showing the net change column. If I change the column layout to use one called periods, you'll notice the financial changes, and now it's showing the current period and the prior to. And you can create your own column layouts. You can do 12 periods. You can really do anything that you're doing in Management Reporter today. Okay, so that's the financial statements using account schedules. You can also do financials using Excel. So here is the Excel balance sheet. And I got the Excel balance sheet on my desktop earlier just by clicking on Excel financials on the home screen. Right here under Excel reports, you can see there's a balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, retained earnings, trial balance, and some agings. When you click on one of those options, it downloads an Excel file, and it's already showing the data. So I'm going to click the refresh button down here, over here on the right, and you see it's refreshing data, and it refreshed the balance sheet. So you can keep all those Excel files right on your desktop. You don't even have to open Business Central, and then just click on the refresh button to get the most current version of the financial statement. And you can change dates and other parameters very easily just by going to the filter section and then changing those parameters. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up the demo portion by showing you Outlook integration, and I'm going to do that in Google Chrome. So here I have Google Chrome, and I'm logged into Outlook. And you'll notice over on the right, there's a Business Central panel, and this gets installed automatically if I add Business Central to my Office 365 account. And you'll notice right now that that panel really isn't showing much. That's because the email that I've clicked on isn't associated with anything in Business Central. If I click on a different email, this one, which is from me, rdfiore@admiral-west.com, you'll notice over on the right some information comes in. And that's because this email address is associated with a vendor in Business Central. So now I can see all of the vendor statistics that I can drill down on as well. I can also see the quantity of all the different transactions that are processed, which I can drill down on as well. And right from within Outlook, I can also create a new purchase order or purchase invoice or purchase credit memo. Now I'm going to click on another email. This one is from rdfiore@outlook.com. And Outlook knows that that is associated with a customer called Trey Research within Business Central. So now I get all this information about the customer. I get their balance, what's past due, life-to-date sales, the number of transactions they've processed, and a bunch of other statistics down at the bottom. And I can also drill into these queues if I want to. Just like I did on the vendor one, I can also create transactions like a sales order or a sales invoice, or I can send a payment reminder as well. And finally, as it relates to the Office integration, the email body had a invoice number in it, and the add-in, the Business Central add-in, is smart enough to recognize that that's an invoice number, so it underlines it and puts it in a blue font. And if I click on it, it then presents the invoice right inside of Outlook, where I can actually modify it, print it, send it, really do anything I want that I could do within Business Central. So it's really pretty amazing, the integration to Outlook. And I'm showing you this in a browser, but all of that would apply if you're using the regular Outlook client as well. All right, now let's talk about pricing and licensing, because we're getting near the end here. I'm going to have to go really fast. Everything is expressed as cost per user per month, and there's 4 different license types. There's a team user, an essentials user, a premium user, and a device user. The team user is read-only, but you have access to everything, but only read-only. You can do some transaction entry though, only time cards and purchase requisitions. The essentials license is $70 a month, and this is what most of you would need. This includes all the financial modules, including some not listed here, like cash management, intercompany, document management with OCR, HR, and all the Office integration that you've seen. And then premium adds full-blown manufacturing. You do get manufacturing in essentials, but not full-blown manufacturing with capacity and scheduling and MRP. You also get service management with premium as well. And then finally, there's a device license for $40, and you would use this on computers like a point of sale terminal or a terminal that's on the manufacturing floor that's going to be used by multiple people. All right, next slide. There is a discount that is in play right now through June 2021. So if you are current on your maintenance as a GP user and you bought GP before October of 2018, you get 40% off. So that means you get everything I mentioned earlier in essentials for $42 a month. And so if you had 5 people, it's only $200 a month. It's actually amazingly low for what you're getting. All right, last couple slides here are your transition options. One option is to completely transition from GP to Business Central. This involves a full implementation, which would likely require design sessions with us, training, financial statement creation if you wanted to get financials besides the stock out of the box ones. You've been through implementations most likely, so you know what's involved. The other option allows you to use GP for your business transactions and reporting just like you are today, but also sync that GP data up to BC in the cloud, up to Business Central. So you get to enjoy some of the benefits of Business Central without implementing it. So let's look at some details on the full transition. It's going to take some time, money, and effort for sure, but I want to just reemphasize some of the benefits if you decide to go that route. You do get the full integration with the full Microsoft stack, including Outlook and Office, which we just saw, and the Power Platform, which includes Power PI. I didn't even go over the other Power Platform bits today, but those parts and all the integrations together absolutely are proven to add productivity to your organization. You're also going to save money since there's no upgrades and no annual maintenance fees, so you'll save thousands right there. You also get scalability and flexibility, both upward and downward, to meet your business needs. And you also get incredible data security, much stronger security than you can get on premise. But there are costs, of course. I mean, most of the master file data and open transactions will convert pretty easily with the tools that are available. So data conversion costs can be really low, but there's a variety of other work that you might need. You might want us to do more data conversion. As I mentioned earlier, you might want us to modify your financials, customize your checks and purchase orders and invoices. You'll definitely need some end user training and go live support. So what would that cost if you went down that path? It depends. I would say on the low side, though, if I had to give you a number, it's going to be 50 hours, and it would go up from there. And if you want a fixed fee number, and we will give you a fixed fee for your particular transition, then just let us know and we'll work through a transition questionnaire with you, and then we'll get you a number within a week. And while the full implementation to any product is going to have some risks, keep in mind if you're moving from one Microsoft product to another, and you would be with GP to Business Central, and you're working with a partner like Admiral that already knows you and your business, that's going to be a lot less risky than moving to another product with another partner. All right, home stretch here, option 2, a little bit more about the inexpensive option, the intelligent cloud option. You won't be able to process any transactions in Business Central, but certain data is periodically synced from GP up to the cloud. So your balances for your vendors, customers, GL, also sales order, inventory, and purchase order information. So because that data will be in the cloud, you get a lot of the benefits of a full implementation, not everything, but a lot of them. You just get to dip your toe in, and you'll get to understand the value of Business Central without having to make a big investment. It almost requires no consulting fees at all. However, know that you do have to be on GP 2018 R2, so you might need to go through a GP upgrade in order to go through, in order to see the second option. So what do you get if you do the second option? You get KPIs related to cash position and net income and inventory. You also get artificial intelligence and machine learning related to cash flow forecasting, inventory forecast, and payment prediction. You also get insights for vendor and customer invoices. And this is a big one here. I think this is probably the biggest, is you get the ability to see all of that data, all of your GP data in the cloud, in a browser, on an iPhone, on an Android device. You get to see everything in Outlook as I showed you today. You get to see things in Excel like I showed you today. And you can also provide access to an outside accountant if you want. You also get Power BI visualizations that we looked at today, trial balance, cash cycle, GL entries, and then you also get dashboards, very detailed dashboards for customer and vendor performance. How do you try it? How do you buy it? You can go to this website, trials.dynamics.com, Dynamics 365 sign up Business Central, and sign up yourself. We can help you if you want. In order to do that though, you have to have an Office 365 tenant. You have to be using Office 365. And if you're not sure if you have a tenant or if you're using Office 365 already, we can help you determine that. If you want to buy the product, you have to go through a partner. So you'd have to go through Admiral or another company like us. So if you want to do it, send me an email. And what I can do is very quickly add licenses to your Office 365 tenant. And again, if you don't have an Office 365 tenant, I can help you in getting that set up. Okay, and that's it. And now I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have some questions, just go to the question panel on your GoToWebinar interface and type it in. And we're just going to hang around for a full 5 minutes and wait for questions. Maybe we won't wait a whole 5 minutes. All right, well, thank you very much for attending. I will upload this entire webcast to our YouTube channel, and I'll send out an email to all of you to let you know exactly how to get to it. Thank you all very much.